There are moments in a life that calcify. Not the big ones, not graduations or weddings or the days when something enormous and expected arrives on schedule. The moments that calcify are the small ones, the ones that happen in ordinary rooms on ordinary afternoons when nobody is watching and everything changes anyway. For Natalie Voss, Natalie Brennan, she had been then. The moment was a Tuesday in September, 15 years ago, in a kitchen that smelled like coffee and a baby that needed feeding at 2 in the morning, and a man who loved her with the uncomplicated totality of someone who had never thought to protect himself from it. She had left on a Wednesday. She had not looked back. She had told herself, for 15 years, with the disciplined repetition of someone building a wall one brick at a time, that leaving had been the right thing. That she had been 23 and terrified, and the life she could see ahead of her, small apartment, small salary, a baby who needed everything, a man who needed her in a way that felt like drowning, had been a life she couldn't survive. She had built a different one instead. Natalie Voss, now 38, was the regional director of ArcLight Communications, responsible for a portfolio of clients that covered 4 countries and required her to be in 4 airports in an average week. She wore her competence like a second skin. She had learned to be decisive in the particular way of someone who had made one enormous, irreversible decision early and had been justifying it ever since by making every subsequent decision with twice the conviction. She had not had children. She had not been back to the city where she'd left. She had not, in 15 years, let herself think about what had happened to James Callahan and the baby she had walked away from. She was very good at not thinking about things. She was thinking about the ArcLight Singapore presentation when she reached gate 27. The gate was crowded, a delay, 40 minutes, the board showing the revised departure time in the patient orange of a system that had decided 40 minutes was someone else's problem. She found a seat against the wall, opened her laptop, pulled up the Singapore deck. She was on slide 4 when she heard it. Not his voice. Not yet. Just a laugh. A child's laugh, the particular bright sound of a kid who found something genuinely funny and had not yet learned to modulate delight for public spaces. It cut through the gate noise the way those sounds always did, the frequency that bypassed the filter of concentration and went straight to something older. She looked up. A boy, maybe 13 or 14, tall for his age, all knees and elbows in the way of adolescence that hasn't caught up with itself yet. Dark hair. A book in one hand. A real one, thick, the kind that takes 2 hands to hold properly. He was laughing at something on the phone of the man beside him. She started to look back at slide 4. She looked at the man. He was looking at his phone, showing the boy something, his own expression in the middle of a laugh that was fading into a smile, and the smile was. The smile was the same. 15 years. The jaw was sharper. The shoulders broader. The lines around his eyes were new, the economy of movement was new, the particular quality of someone who had learned to carry weight without showing it was new. Everything else was the same. James Callahan looked up from his phone, still smiling, and looked directly at her. The smile stopped. The seconds that followed were among the most specific of her life. She watched him recognize her. Watched it happen in real time across his face, the initial register, the recheck, the confirmation. Watched something move behind his eyes that was complicated and fast and that he controlled, visibly and deliberately, in the space of approximately 3 seconds. He looked back at his son. He said something, she couldn't hear it from this distance. And the boy nodded and put his headphones on and opened his book. Then James Callahan stood up. He walked toward her. She had approximately 8 seconds to decide what to do with her face and her hands and the 15 years that were sitting in her chest like a stone she had been carrying so long she'd forgotten it had weight until this exact moment when it became unbearable. He stopped in front of her. He was taller than she remembered. Or she had forgotten. Or the memory had compressed him into something more manageable than the reality. "Natalie," he said. His voice was the same. Lower, maybe. The same. James, she said. The word came out steadier than it had any right to. He looked at her for a moment, the direct, unhurried look of someone who had had 15 years to decide what he would do if this moment ever arrived and had arrived at a decision that cost him something. Long flight, he said. Singapore, she said. You? Tokyo. Tech conference. A beat. I'm in software development now. My company. She looked at the boy across the gate, headphones on, book open. Dark hair. The angle of his jaw. That's Eli, James said, following her gaze. He's 14. 14. She did the arithmetic she had been not doing for 15 years and it landed exactly where she'd known it would land. He looks like you, she said, because she had to say something. He looks like both of us, James said, quietly and without cruelty. The gate noise continued around them, announcements, rolling luggage, a child at the far end asking how much longer, and inside all of it, Natalie Voss sat with the stone in her chest and the weight of a sentence she had just heard spoken out loud for the first time. He looks like both of us. She had met James Callahan at 22. He had been 24, finishing a computer science degree at night while working IT support during the day, with the specific focused energy of someone who could see exactly where he was going and was not willing to be slowed down. He had been funny, genuinely funny, the kind that came from paying close attention to the world rather than performing for it. He had been kind in the matter-of-fact way of people for whom kindness is not a strategy but a baseline. She had loved him quickly and completely and with the terrifying abandon of someone who had not known, before, what it felt like to be fully known by another person. When she found out she was pregnant at 23, he had been, not just willing, not just resigned, but genuinely glad. He had held her face in his hands and said, "We can do this," with the conviction of someone for whom "we" was the most important word in the sentence. She had believed him for 6 months. Then the apartment had felt smaller. The salary had felt smaller. The future had felt like a corridor narrowing to a point, and at the point was a version of herself she didn't recognize. Not the self she had planned, not the life she had sketched out in the margins of her ambition, not anything she had wanted badly enough to choose it over everything else she could still, at 23, become. She had left on a Wednesday morning while James was at work and Eli was 5 months old. She had left a letter. She had never read James's response, because she had changed her number. For 15 years, she had been very successful. She had also, in the specific hours between 2 and 4 in the morning when the mind does its most honest work, understood exactly what she had done. He didn't sit down next to her. He sat down 2 seats away, not hostile distance, not comfortable distance. The distance of someone who had decided to be in proximity without pretending proximity was simple. "You don't have to do this," she said. "Do what?" "Be civil. You don't owe me civil." He looked at the gate board, the orange letters. "I'm not doing it for you," he said. "Eli knows I had a relationship before his mother." Before his adoptive mother, he corrected, with the careful precision of someone who had had many conversations about language and had learned exactly which words to use. "He doesn't need to see me be anything other than a person." She absorbed this. He was adopted. "My sister." He said it without looking at her. "When Eli was 8 months old, I couldn't, there was a period where I couldn't manage everything alone. My sister took him for 3 months. Legally, technically. She was 18, she qualified, it was the best option for him at the time." A pause. "Then she brought him back. She never thought of it as permanent. Neither did I. But Eli knows the full story, age-appropriately." "His mother," Natalie said carefully. "His adoptive." "My wife," James said. "Was my wife. She died 4 years ago." The stone in Natalie's chest changed shape. "James." "Cancer," he said. 2 years from diagnosis to the end. He said it with the flatness of someone who had said it enough times to have worn the sharp edges off. She was extraordinary. She loved Eli like he was hers from the first day because he was hers from the first day. The biology was incidental. Natalie looked at her hands on the laptop keyboard. The Singapore presentation, slide 4, the revenue projections for Q3. The whole architecture of the life she had built so carefully, so deliberately, spread across her screen. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know. James." "Natalie." He said her name with the particular tone of someone closing a door gently but completely. "I'm not doing this today. Not at gate 27 with 40 minutes to Tokyo and Eli 10 feet away." He looked at her for the first time since sitting down. "But I want you to know that I know what you built. I've followed ArcLight. I know what you've accomplished." She looked at him. "You followed." "Not obsessively," he said. "I'm not that person. But you were the mother of my son, and I wanted to know you were functional. That you were okay." A beat. "You're more than okay. You're very successful." "Yes," she said. "Are you happy?" The question landed without warning, which was the only way questions like that could land. She looked at the gate board. Singapore. 4-hour delay now, the board had just updated. 4 hours. "I don't know," she said. It was the most honest thing she had said in 15 years. Eli came over at the 90-minute mark. He had finished his book. She could see the cover now, a dense science fiction novel, the kind that required commitment, and he stood in front of his father with the easy, unconscious physicality of a boy who trusted his parent absolutely. "I'm hungry," he said. "There's a place down the terminal. Get whatever you want." James handed him a card without looking at his wallet first. The automatic trust of a parent who had stopped keeping track because the tracking was less important than the ease. "Don't disappear. I'll be at the noodle place." Eli started to turn, then looked at Natalie, the frank, unguarded appraisal of a 14-year-old who had not yet learned to pretend he wasn't looking. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she said. "Do you know my dad?" The question was conversational, not loaded. He didn't know it was loaded. "We knew each other a long time ago," Natalie said. "When you were very small." Eli looked at her. His eyes were, she made herself not look away, dark, like James's, but the shape of them was different. The shape of them was hers. "Cool," he said, in the tone of a teenager for whom the past was a country he didn't need a visa to. He went to find the noodle place. They both watched him go. "He's remarkable," Natalie said softly. "Yes," James said. "He is. You did that. Claire did that. My wife." He paused. "And my sister. And his teachers. And Eli himself." He looked at the corridor where his son had disappeared. "I showed up every day. That's the most I can honestly claim." "That's not nothing," she said. "No," he agreed. "It's not nothing." The delay extended to 3 hours. At some point, she couldn't have said exactly when, only that it happened gradually, the way temperatures change. They stopped sitting 2 seats apart and moved to a small cluster of chairs by the window, with the runway visible through the glass and the planes moving in the late afternoon light. She told him about ArcLight. Not the resume version. The real version, the version with the years that had been hard, the clients she'd lost and had to rebuild, the period in her early 30s when the success had felt like a room she was locked inside. He listened the way she remembered him listening, completely, without waiting for his turn. He told her about the software company. 8 years old, 40 employees, a platform for small business financial management that had started as a side project during Eli's early school years and had become, in the last 3 years, something that attracted the kind of attention that changed a business from a company into something larger. "You're going to Tokyo for," she said. "Acquisition conversation," he said. "A Japanese conglomerate that wants the platform for their SME division." He said it with the measured calm of someone for whom this was significant but not destabilizing. It would change the scale considerably. How considerably? He named a number. She looked at him. He almost smiled, the corner of his mouth, the same ghost of a smile she had been seeing for 15 years when she let herself remember it. "I know," he said. "James. I know what it is." He looked at the runway. "I've been building for a long time." She thought about the 24-year-old doing computer science at night and IT support during the day, the focused energy of someone who could see where he was going. She thought about everything she had assumed she was leaving behind when she left. The smallness she had attributed to a life that had, apparently, not been small at all. "I was wrong," she said. He looked at her. "About what I thought the future looked like," she said. "The morning I left. I thought," she stopped. "Found it. I thought I was leaving a small life. A narrow corridor. I told myself that the thing I was choosing instead was bigger." She paused. "I was 23 and I couldn't see the difference between something that was small and something that was just beginning." He was very still. "I know why you left," he said finally. "James. I spent a long time being angry about it," he said. "A very long time. And then Eli got sick, not seriously, a fever that spiked too high one night, the kind that makes everything feel like the edge of something, and I sat in the hospital with him and I thought, I can't spend what I have on anger. Everything I have goes to him." He paused. "The anger didn't disappear. But I stopped feeding it." "You didn't have to forgive me," she said. "I didn't do it for you," he said, again. "I did it because Eli deserved a father who wasn't hollowed out." The honesty of this sat between them. "Are you happy?" she asked, returning his question. He thought about it with the seriousness it deserved. "Yes," he said. "Mostly. In the way that people are happy when they've built something real." He looked at the window. "I miss Claire every day. That doesn't go away. But I'm okay in my life. I like my life." "I'm glad," she said. She meant it absolutely. Eli came back with noodles and 3 pairs of chopsticks and sat down between them with the unself-conscious ease of a boy who trusted that adults could manage their own complexity without his help. "You should eat," he said to his father, handing him a container. "I'm not hungry. You said that this morning and then you ate my toast." James took the container. Eli looked at Natalie. "Do you want some? I got extra because Dad always says he's not hungry and then eats mine." She almost laughed. "Thank you," she said, and took the container he offered. They sat by the window with the runway outside and the planes doing their patient, enormous work, and Eli told them both, without distinction, with the easy inclusivity of a teenager who had been raised around adults and was comfortable with them. About the book he'd finished, a science fiction novel about a generation ship and the ethical problems of a society that had been traveling so long it had forgotten what it was traveling toward. "The best part," he said, "is that nobody's wrong. Everyone on the ship has a completely logical reason for what they believe. The whole conflict is just incompatible logics." "That's most conflicts," James said. "That's what the book is saying." Eli pointed at his father with a chopstick. "You've read it. 15 years ago. And you didn't tell me? I wanted to see what you'd think without knowing what I thought." Eli considered this. "Then, that's annoying and also reasonable. Most parenting is," James said. Eli laughed, the same bright laugh she'd heard across the gate, the one that had made her look up, the one that had started everything. She sat with the noodle container in her hands and the laugh in her ears and the stone in her chest, which had not gone away but which had changed into something she couldn't yet name, something with more air in it, something less like weight and more like grief that had finally been acknowledged and was, slowly, beginning to move. The Tokyo flight was called first. Eli stood immediately, the reflexive readiness of someone who spent a lot of time in airports. He repacked his bag with the efficient speed of a practice traveler, 14 years old and already better at this than most adults she knew. James stood. He looked at Natalie. "I have a card," he said. He held it out, a business card, simple, just his name and the company name and a number. "If you want to," he stopped. Reconsidered. "Eli has questions," he said. "He's had questions for years. I've answered what I could. Some things he'll want to ask himself, when he's ready." Another pause. "I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not promising anything. I'm saying, if he ever asks, and you want to answer, you now have a way to reach me." She took the card. Her hands were very steady. She was proud of that, in the distant, practical way of someone managing themselves through something enormous. "James," she said. He looked at her. "I know I don't get to say this," she said. "I know I forfeited the right to most things. But she looked at Eli, who was shouldering his bag, looking at the departure board. "You did something extraordinary with him." "He did something extraordinary with himself," James said. "I just kept showing up." "That's everything," she said. He looked at her for a moment. The 39-year-old man with the Tokyo flight and the acquisition conversation and the 40 employees and the life he had built from the rubble of a Wednesday morning 15 years ago. "Take care of yourself, Natalie," he said. "Not goodbye. Not it was good to see you. Not anything that pretended this had been a casual encounter between two people with shared history. Take care of yourself." It was, she understood, the kindest thing he could have said. "You too," she said. Eli stopped at the gate entrance. Turned back. He looked at her across the crowded departures hall, the 14-year-old with the dark hair and the shape of her eyes and the laugh that had started everything, and he raised one hand. Not a wave exactly. Just an acknowledgement. "I see you. You were there." She raised her hand back. Then James's hand came down on Eli's shoulder, and they turned, and they walked through the gate, and they were gone. The Singapore flight was delayed a further 90 minutes. Natalie sat at gate 27 alone, the noodle container still in her hands, the business card on her knee. She opened her laptop. Slide 4 was still there, the revenue projections, the Singapore deck, the whole architecture of the life she had built so carefully. She closed the laptop. She sat for a long time in the particular quality of quiet that airports have at the edges of things. Not peaceful, not loud, just the held-breath feeling of a place designed entirely for departures. She thought about incompatible logics. She thought about a 23-year-old who could not see the difference between something small and something just beginning. She thought about a man who had stopped feeding his anger because his son deserved better than a hollowed-out father. She thought about what it meant to spend 15 years building a life so solid that it couldn't be touched, and to sit at a gate in an airport and feel the solidity of it and understand, finally, clearly, without the self-deception she had been maintaining for a very long time, that solid and full were not the same word. Her phone buzzed. A message from a number she didn't recognize. "He asked me on the jetway if you were okay. I told him you seemed like someone who was figuring something out. He said that tracks. J." She read it twice. She looked at the card on her knee. She looked at the gate where they had disappeared. She looked at the departure board, the orange letters, her flight still 40 minutes out. She typed, "Tell him I said he has good instincts." A pause. Then, He says thank you. He also says the book is worth reading. She looked at that for a moment. Then she typed, I know. I read it 15 years ago. She put the phone down. She opened her laptop again. But she left a tab open. The Callahan software website. She found it in 2 minutes, the clean design of something built by someone who cared about precision, with a contact page and an address in the city she had left 15 years ago. She didn't close the tab. She thought that was, for now, enough. The coffee at the airport on Concourse B was not good. Natalie knew this and bought it anyway because she had a 40-minute wait and the alternative was standing at the gate with nothing to do except think, which she had been doing enough of in the last 6 months to last considerably longer. She had sent one email. 3 months after Gate 27. Careful, short, honest, the way she was learning, late in life, to be honest about things she had spent a long time not looking at directly. James had responded in 2 days. The response was longer than the email. They had spoken on the phone twice since then. Real conversations, not easy, not comfortable, not anything that pretended 15 years and a Wednesday morning and a boy who had grown up without her were uncomplicated. But honest. The same honesty she had glimpsed at the gate, the honesty of 2 people who had nothing left to perform for each other. She was not in Eli's life. That was not a thing that could be fixed or rushed or wished into a different shape. He knew she existed. He knew how to reach her, when and if he ever decided to. James had made that clear without pressure in either direction. She was learning to hold things she couldn't fix without trying to fix them. This was, she was discovering, one of the harder things. Her flight was called. She picked up her bag, her coffee, the carry-on that had been in and out of more airports than she could count. She walked toward the gate with the steady, purposeful stride that 15 years of this life had built into her bones. She passed Gate 27. She slowed. It was an ordinary gate, same orange letters, same rows of seats, same particular airport quality of everywhere and nowhere. A family at one end, a businessman on a laptop, 2 college students asleep on each other's shoulders. She stood there for a moment. Then she kept walking. Gate 27 was behind her. It would always be behind her, the conversation she couldn't undo, the son she had no right to claim, the man who had taken the rubble of a Wednesday morning and built something real with it. But she was walking forward now. Not away from things. Toward them. She had a flight to catch. And a tab she'd left open. And the slow, difficult, necessary work of becoming someone who could live in the same world as the truth she'd spent 15 years avoiding. That was enough, she thought. For now, it was enough.